Okay, for about 10, 20 years, I've been a big fan of Michelle Malkin, best-selling author, syndicated columnist, and one of the leading conservative thinkers in all of America. She joins us right now from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Michelle, great to see you again. Sorry about all the censorship. How are you?
Good, and it's great to be with you. It's a mutual admiration society, Greg. I'm so delighted to join you.
Thanks for being here. I wish big tech shared my admiration for you. I want to play a portion of a speech that was somehow banned, at least I think from Twitter, and maybe some other internet companies yanked it. Here you are, and then we'll chat about it. I don't think you're saying anything that controversial, but let's take a look.
When I planted my little flag in the social media world on the internet almost 20 years ago, I never thought that I'd have to wake up one day and wonder if my entire website was going to be unplugged because of an opinion that I expressed.
Maybe that's a little bit too close to home. You spoke for much longer, of course. The speech got a lot of attention. President Trump tweeted it. Now it's unavailable. It was taken down by Twitter and other portions. What did you say that got them so mad?
I guess it's threatening to the powers that be in Silicon Valley to have independent citizens calling them out on their systemic discrimination against conservatives and conservatives who express their opinions on all manner of things. For me, of course, I've been very outspoken about the need for American sovereignty and enforcing our immigration laws in particular. But I've also been outspoken about the censorship that has escalated during the Trump administration against people who are Trump supporters, MAGA activists, pro-lifers, social conservatives, immigration hawks. And this war has been taking place almost every single day on the internet. And President Trump is absolutely right. The forces of the radical left dominate all of the major platforms that have monopolistic power over the public square: Facebook, Google, YouTube. And I've had all sorts of interactions over the years with many of these entities that have sought to squelch my speech in small ways and large. I've had videos censored. I've had a post at Facebook, Greg, that was censored because I was complaining about people who were censored on Facebook. And so, of course, it's encouraging for President Trump to talk about this and to promise to do something. But he has promised that over the last year. And a year ago, in fact, this month, he said that he was, quote, monitoring the situation. Well, over the weekend, when he retweeted this clip of my speech from an account called AF Clips, he said that he wanted names and cases and that the government was actually going to do something about what he considers illegal behavior. And I say, amen, do it faster.
You know, I think this has some momentum now, especially with COVID-19. You remember those doctors who spoke on the West Coast? Two guys, I think they were from Fresno. They were very impressive, Dr. Masihi, and they were talking about the COVID crisis. And they didn't say anything radical, quite frankly. They were raising questions about whether some of this was warranted. 5 million people viewed it, but it was yanked for violating the terms of YouTube. So I think, like, a lot of folks are tuning into this who weren't necessarily terribly political before, tuning into this censorship that is coming from big tech.
No question about it. It affects our daily lives, the ability to communicate, the ability to get independent information, and especially to hear from whistleblowers, from dissenters, from people who are willing to criticize the powers that be that I talked about, whether it's big pharma and having these independent doctors who don't answer to government funding, for example, to share their actual practical experience, or whether it's ordinary citizens, whether it's young people who are getting involved in politics for the first time. And there is an explicitly political component to this, Greg, because all of the leftists at Google and Facebook know that it was the ability for people like me to communicate, and independent journalists, for example, and activists, that in large part helped create the momentum to elect President Trump in the first place. Many of these whistleblowers and people that have done undercover recordings of inside Google meetings, for example, caught these executives on tape saying that their number one goal heading into Election Day this year is to prevent President Trump from getting reelected. Those are the stakes.
Somebody a couple of centuries ago, Heinrich Heine, somebody like that, warned about burning books. If you burn books, ultimately people will burn. And I really feel like we're on a similar trajectory, taking content down off of Twitter, off of YouTube. That is the modern equivalent of book burning. Now, having said that, look, if I have a private company, let's say I started an internet company tomorrow and it just took off like gangbusters and everybody was posting to it. I, as a private person who run the company, I guess I have the authority to take things down if I don't like them. But here's the thing. If it gets so big, I mean, I don't think YouTube is a private company anymore, even though it's probably a private company. It's more like a utility. And I think that's what people like Attorney General Barr and the Trump administration, they may pursue that. Like, you guys are too big. You can't just take what you like, Mark Zuckerberg, and get rid of the stuff you don't like. We're all in this one together.
You hit the nail on the head, Greg, and I absolutely agree with you that, sure, sort of, theoretically, and a lot of the libertarian right will argue this, well, these are private companies, they should be able to do what they want. But they do have quasi-monopolistic power now. They're dominant. I mean, they have 80, 90% market share. On top of that, they get a lot of government preferences. So let's not pretend that we actually do operate in a free market environment. And of course, as some Republican senators have pointed out, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, they've had hearings and they've carried legislative proposals that talk about something called the Communications Decency Act. Section 230 says that these companies can be immune from lawsuits. They have special liability as long as they operate as neutral platforms, which they clearly do not do. I mean, there are laundry lists of the hundreds and hundreds of social media influencers on the right who have been outright banned for speech that is completely peaceful, nonviolent, and that merely expresses opinions that are inconvenient to the Silicon Valley overlords.
Michelle, I'm afraid we got to go. So if in 15 seconds you can tell me, how frustrated are you right now with the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner? I understand that, look, he's very influential. His father-in-law is the president. He's got a lot of power, but he's frustrating a lot of conservatives right now, especially some hardliners on immigration.
Yes, absolutely. There's a piece in Politico that came out over the weekend. I'm one of the people quoted in it. There's palace intrigue going on between the Jared Kushner wing of the West Wing, which doesn't have the same kind of principles that President Trump ran on when it comes to MAGA and America First. In fact, many of those forces do the bidding of Silicon Valley, do the bidding of Open Borders Incorporated. And a lot of this swamp politics happens behind the scenes. People really need to get educated about what the Kushner agenda really is. We've got this immigration ban. We have less than 2 weeks for the president to decide whether to extend and expand it. And unfortunately, many of the people that Kushner has installed are against doing what needs to be done to protect American workers.
All right. Well, you guys got to find something for him to do, because he's obviously he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's the president's son-in-law. I understand, very happily married to Ivanka. They make a great couple. But Michelle, great to see you. Michelle Malkin, everyone. To be continued, okay?
You bet. My pleasure, Greg.
All right. Take care now.